This is Rosen Institute's Your Law Firm, where we discuss law practice management, marketing, and new technologies to grow your law firm. Here's your host, Lee Rosen.
No lawyer can do it alone. Once upon a time, I felt like I had to do everything by myself if it was going to be done right. Those days, unfortunately, were chaotic and horrible and stressful, and it got especially bad when the pressure of a deadline loomed. I could feel it as things would get closer and closer and closer to the time that we needed to be done, and my team would frustrate me. And inevitably, the computers would fail us in some way, and the client would keep calling and ask way too many questions. And when that pressure built and the deadline was just around the corner, I would seize control. I would kick everybody out of my office. I knew that I was the only person on the planet who could fix whatever problem it was that I was dealing with right then. I had to do it all by myself because I was sure that was the only way it was going to get done. So I pushed everyone away, often doing it in some obnoxious, alienating, mean-spirited outburst that would later come back to haunt me in one way or another. My response in those high-pressure circumstances was rarely, very rarely, elegant. I look back on it now and laugh because it turns out that temper tantrums like that clearly are not very good for team building. I didn't necessarily see that at the time, and it took me a long, long time to learn to hide my assholishness behaviors in those situations. It would be great if I could dig down into my personality and actually solve that problem with myself, but hiding it turns out, for now at least, to be the best I can do toward solving the problem. Thankfully, as I grew and learned, at some point along the way, I realized that seizing control of situations like those high-pressure deadline scenarios and indulging my desire to fix everything myself isn't and wasn't a realistic solution to the problem. You can't solve all the problems. This is not something any of us can do all by ourselves. There isn't enough time in the day. There isn't enough money in the world. There isn't enough oxygen in the room. I simply learned the hard way that I couldn't solve all the problems. Maybe you can. Maybe other people can do it all themselves. But I don't think so. I don't think you can do it all. I think that's just impossible. Now, I certainly understand the desire to do it all by yourself. You want to fix the problem. You want it over with. You want to put it behind you. You want to control it so that you know it's being handled properly. You want to maintain control over it until you decide the time is right to let it go. But the fact of the matter is that in any situation like this, where there's pressure, where there's a looming deadline, so many things can and often do go wrong. The pleading gets filed late, costing your client her claim, or the software eats the data, costing you days worth of work, or the client's check bounces, which disrupts payroll and your team's paychecks in the middle of all the work. Or the upset client decides to post a nasty one-star review on Google or Avvo or Yelp, or the courthouse clerk loses the order you promised you'd have to your client just in time to prevent that disaster they are trying to prevent, or the tiny typo that no one noticed turns into a very expensive problem, or the judgment you just got gets discharged in bankruptcy, the offer is withdrawn, the promise is broken. So many different kinds of things in so many different practice areas can go wrong, and some days are so bad that we just want to get back in the bed, pull the covers up over our heads, and go back to sleep. Some days we feel that way before lunch. And when it happens, when disaster after disaster after disaster is striking and we're under pressure to get results, reflexively, we want to fix everything ourselves. Don't do it. When everything is going wrong, this is when you need the help. This is when your investment in a solid team pays off. These are the moments when you need not to go it alone in your room with the door closed. These are the moments when you need to turn to your people. Of course, I talk endlessly about things you can do to build your business other than investing in your people. You can prevent many problems by building solid systems documentation for your standard procedures. You can purchase and create and customize technology to execute on all of your systems. You can create a philosophy around your approach to solving problems that's consistent with your values and beliefs, and you can use those ideas to reinforce your systems and your technology. But all of the value statements, documentation, and technology in the world can't help if your people aren't capable of dealing with unanticipated problems and unanticipated pressures. Sure, Starbucks or McDonald's can use a formula to solve most of their problems, but even they run into issues when they are forced to deal with complex and unanticipated situations. Unfortunately, a lot of what happens in a law firm is complex and unanticipated. That is the nature of our game. So by building systems and implementing technology, you elevate the performance of your team. You give them a floor to stand on. You lift them higher. But your systems will encounter a ceiling. There will always be systems left to build because there will always be unexpected problems. When the unknown rears its head and the unexpected arrives, it's time to abandon the system because it's time to turn to your people. In those moments, you need a collection of talented people who can rise to the occasion. Your team needs to be able to go beyond the systems, beyond the technology, and use the firm's mission and values and the intellect of your team members to solve the current problem that's right there in front of them. You need great people capable of solving unexpected problems of great magnitude. You need a great team, and it is your responsibility to assemble that great team. That's one of the primary roles of leaders. The hiring process is always challenging. The right people can propel your business forward, but the wrong ones can set you back. Recruiting the best people is competitive. I'm going to run through some tips today for hiring the right people and pushing them in the right direction. I've got 7 ideas you can use. Let's run through each of them quickly. Number 1, get specific with their roles. You don't need a team made entirely of employees. In fact, it's rare for a law firm to manage all of its work through employees. Most of us use outside accountants, marketing consultants, technology experts, and others. Some go further and build their entire team out of outsourced specialists assembled handled on a project-by-project basis. That doesn't mean you should pigeonhole everyone into a fixed role. Diversify your arrangement to use the right tools for the right jobs. You can even mix it up within categories. There's no reason you can't delegate some legal work to employees and then bring in contractors for particular projects and tasks. Specificity lets you expand and distribute tasks based on workload and the types of projects you undertake. Number 2, curate the right people. If you can recruit quickly and easily, you aren't doing it right. I meet lawyers who brag about hiring new team members in a week. Inevitably, they're hiring weak players who don't have many other options. Some people are available instantly because nobody else wants them. Qualified, talented people are hard to find. Focus on picking carefully and finding the right person for the right role. Don't operate in a pressured environment where you're forced to choose from among who's available instead of who's best. Recruit constantly. Interview all of the time, whether you have a position or not. Use your network to stay connected to talent so you know who you want before you have a need. Number 3, train them well. Training is essential. It needs to happen whether you drive it or your team members drive it themselves. Don't expect your team to improve just through their experience. Ongoing education is critical for growth. Those in your firm who handle management, marketing, and sales need ongoing training in management, marketing, and sales. Lawyers need ongoing legal education. Technology folks need to stay current. Accounting people need continuing education. Everyone needs to keep learning in order to keep growing. There's a temptation to limit your education only to what's required to maintain your license. That's sufficient if you don't want to grow. If you're looking to move higher, you and your team need to make learning a priority. As you recruit, look for candidates with an interest in learning and in advancement. Employees who take on learning new skills with the same enthusiasm they would show for a week of traffic school are not assets to your business. Number 4, manage them appropriately. The team, whether they're employees, contractors, or vendors, needs management. They need a well-managed approach to delegation, feedback, and coaching. They need clarity about what's supposed to be done, how it's going, and how to improve to meet your standards. How you manage each team member will vary depending on their experience and on their relationship with your law firm, but everyone needs some level of feedback about how they're doing and how they can improve. Your role in that process depends on your role in the business. You may not be directly involved with the bulk of the team members, but you'll still need to manage the managers. The need for feedback never, ever subsides. Number 5, keep them informed. You know, your team can't read your mind, and they can't do their job if they don't understand your requirements. They need to understand the mission, your principles, the processes, and the specifics of the current project. If you want a specific outcome, you need a coordinated, aligned team working in unison. That can only happen if you communicate with everyone constantly. Everybody needs constant updates and information so that they can move forward together. Communication only works if it's consistent, coordinated, and frequent. Strong teams employ technology, tools like Slack or other communication tools, coupled with a rhythm of regular, frequent communication according to a system. The communication only works when you're doing it consistently. So different cultures employ different approaches, but regular daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly meetings keep everyone on the team in alignment and moving in the same direction. Your team doesn't know what you expect unless you communicate it over and over. The need to communicate will never, ever end. Number 6, help them connect. Your team needs to be connected to one another. But that doesn't happen by osmosis or accident. It happens through your deliberate effort to connect people. Connection is more than just communication. It happens when people open themselves to one another and build trust. Trust falls and rope courses may not be the right approach for your business, but your team needs some way of getting to know one another. Different businesses build connections among their team members differently depending on their culture and the nature of their work. If you devote time and attention to helping your team build trust, if you give them the tools they need, they'll learn to understand and rely upon one another. One-to-one meetings between managers and team members are a powerful way to build connections and trust. There may be other approaches that are equally effective, but I haven't discovered them yet. Number 7, trust them. The point of putting all this effort into building a strong team is so you can rely on them when challenges arise. You want to be able to trust your team in the moment when you are least comfortable trusting anyone. When the pressure builds, the deadlines approach, and the stress piles on, that's the time to trust the investment you've made in your team. You won't want to trust them. That's especially true at first, but trusting people builds more trust, and it does it in both directions. They'll notice when you step back and let them step up. They'll come to trust you and to trust each other and to be proud of their growth and their improvement. Your team will get stronger when you get out of the way and let them do their job and solve the problem. So those are my tips. That's my advice. Let the magic happen. You know that challenging moments are just around the corner. The next crisis is not that far into the future. Once you've built a solid team, keep building and trusting. Let them solve problems. Don't try to do it all by yourself. Don't fall into the "I'm the only one who can fix it" trap. Your team will rise to the occasion if you let them. Trust them to do what you've built the team to do. I look back and I remember those days when I thought I had to do it all. I remember the lonely times when I kicked everyone out and sat alone, overwhelmed by the problems that I believed that only I could solve. Those were tough times that I don't want to repeat. Nowadays, when I face a challenging obstacle, I don't even think about doing it alone. I know deep down that there is someone there who can help. In fact, I know that they can do more than help. They can almost always do it without me. And so when the deadline looms and the pressure mounts, it's comforting to know that I and you have a solid team behind us. That's when building a strong team really pays off. Until next time, I'm Lee Rosen.
Thanks for listening to Your Law Firm. For more information on how you can take your law practice to the next level, visit roseninstitute.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes. Follow Lee Rosen on Twitter at Lee Rosen